Okay, so this is actually the second class, and because let me just quickly talk about what we are supposed to do here with the company law. Let me get that. So when you talk about something like company law, the things that you're supposed to cover will vary, but the whole point here is that you just have four parts. Yeah, and I hope you guys were able to access the notes. Were you able to access the notes? I sent the notes via WhatsApp. Kenneth, were you able to see them?
Oh, yes, I do. I did see them.
Okay, so I'm also going to send the notes for this class immediately after the class. So that's how we are going to be moving on. After class, I send you the notes. But this is what we said last time, in case you aren't there, that the entire syllabus is based on four parts. And the first part just deals with formation, okay? Formation of companies. And so under formation of companies, this is where we have the nature and classification of companies, which is actually topic one. So we start by understanding exactly when you're dealing with businesses, okay? These business organizations, what exactly are we talking about? Is it a company? Is it a sole proprietor? Is it a partnership? Why would you even go with any? And then the next thing is actually, how do you even form a company? Okay, so the steps involved. And finally, who are the members that you're going to be dealing with in a company? And sometimes you look at members and you think of them as shareholders. So this is going to be topic one, topic two, topic three, and all that just falls under formation for company, which is something that you are supposed to know. So company law is not that complicated. In fact, legal stuff aren't complicated. The reason why law will always appear to be tough is just English. Okay? Law itself is easy. Yeah, in fact, the reason why you think lawyers are smart is because they speak very fast, and then the good ones, the dumb ones are properly dumb, but the good ones, they speak very fast, and they always seem to have logic. But which is the same as whatever we are covering. Once you understand the logic, it becomes very easy. Okay? So that's the first part, forming companies. Now, once you have formed a company, there is a question of how exactly do you plan to finance the company? So that is part two. Remember, I've said we are going to look at it in terms of four parts. So how do you finance anything? I mean, let me ask you that. If you start a business right now, okay, Peter, Kenneth, and UL, UL, how would you finance it? Any idea? Any idea?
Through savings.
So savings. Anybody else?
Through loans,
Through a
borrow,
loan.
you can borrow from bank.
In fact, those
Yeah.
are the perfect examples. So savings and loan. Now, what does that tell you? If you're using savings, you're basically using your own money, right? And if you use a loan, you're using other people's money. And that's pretty much how companies are financed, by the way. It's only that they use big, you guys are accountants, okay? So you use big words, okay? So when it's your own money, you'll say shares and what? What do you write in a in balance sheet, statement of financial position? Down there, what do you write? Financed by, what do you say? What do you normally say? Financed by what? Come on, guys, you've done financial accounting. So down there, you normally say financed by.
I think it's only financed by equity. You don't say the profits that are coming from the previous period and maybe in a capital that you're putting.
So when you say equity, let's go with that. What does equity mean in this sense? Equity simply talks about the members' shares, share capital. So do you see how simple these things are, right? So you just write them there, but you don't really ask, what is this? So when you say financed by shareholders' equity or financed by not stakeholders, now I'm thinking something else. Anyway, but that equity is just shares. It's just a nice word for saying shares. So the money you raise from selling shares is going to be called share capital. And that's a topic. Topic 4, topic 5. Okay. Or you can finance it using other people's money. And that's how you end up with debt capital. And to give you an example of this, still there. So Peter, Kenneth, and Yoel, when you're looking at your balance sheet, you have current assets, right? And then you also have current liabilities. But then you have non-current assets and non-current liabilities. Under non-current liabilities, what do you have? And by the way, this is company law, so you don't have to be right. I mean, like, I'm not teaching you accounting. So under non-current liabilities, what do you have there?
We have creditors.
Come again.
Like we have in creditors.
So creditors, but it's a question of a timeline, right? So basically just have long-term debts, right? So because remember, non-current liabilities won't help you when you're trying to figure out your working capital. So in this case, it's long-term debt, and that is other people's money. So that becomes topic what? Topic 6. So notice, we started by forming a company, okay? And now that we have the company registered, how do we finance it? And then you're saying we can finance it using our own money, or we can finance it using other people's money. And of course, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Now you have your company and you have money. Okay, having a business idea and having money doesn't necessarily guarantee success. You know those people who say, I would have started my business, but I lack capital. That's not the reason why you haven't started. It's just that the idea is probably useless. So now, you have your business, you have money. The next thing, part 3, management. Okay, so under management, which will bring us to topic 7 and the rest, how do we manage companies? Who are the people who run companies, by the way? Based on what you know about companies. At this level, you guys need to at least have an idea about companies. Who are the people running Safaricom? Alice, how are you doing? And Maxwell, how are you doing, Maxwell? So come on, guys. Safaricom, who are the people running Safaricom? The shareholders. The shareholders don't run anything, by the way. The shareholders just like to know that we will get money, we will get dividends. There are people who actually run the company. Who are they? I mean, I'm speaking as one of the shareholders there. I don't care. I'm just like, what happens at the end of how much is a share price? At the moment, I'm just playing with their money. Okay. So what are the people running Safaricom? Come on, Kenneth, what do you have?
I would say the board of directors who appoint the CEO, and then from there you have the entire spectrum of all the management that comes from the CFO, the CTOs, and the operations, and everybody else.
See, you knew the answer, but you're just quiet. So it's the directors, right? The directors. So that means you're going to have an entire topic on directors. Of course, the directors, as Alice puts it, directors are going to be appointed by the shareholders. That is why you think shareholders are in charge, but they're not really in charge. Okay? I mean, you're only in charge as a shareholder if you have enough shares to control what is happening in the company. That is a secret that you're not told in investment. People just say, buy shares and you'll get dividends. If you're a shareholder and your vote doesn't count because someone else has more shares than you, then you're just a minor shareholders. And you'll see the problem with being a minor shareholders when you get to topic 4. So we have directors, and the board of directors, and all those people that Kenneth has mentioned. And we also have secretaries to the board. We look at these people. And then how do we know that whatever they're telling us is right? Because they could be lying. And that is why we have auditors. All this is part of managing the company. Part 3, notice. Part 1, we are forming a company. Part 2, financing a company. Part 3, managing that company. Now, auditors and inspectors and all that. And then part 4, what if we don't want to do anything? We are annoyed. The company is boring anyway. So we want to end the company. So winding up. So we'll talk about winding up and also alternatives to winding up. And then you sit for your exams. And then you say, we understand how to run companies from the legal perspective. So do you see how easy this actually is? There's nothing complicated here now, is there? Or I'm just saying it's easy because I'm the one who's not sitting for exams in this class. What do you think? Kenneth, Maxwell, Alice? Are you all? It's easy, right?
It is.
Exactly. There's nothing complicated here. So now, in the last class, okay, let's go back to, first of all, how do I clean all this stuff up? Oh, this is the problem with using my, whatever. Come back and clean it later. So, in the last class, we were talking, okay, let me just sort this because if I don't do it, I'll still come back to this page and we'll still be stuck. Okay. Anyway, so in the last class, we introduced the nature and classification of companies, and we talked about the idea that there are a number of ways. Okay, the idea that there are a number of ways in which you can classify companies, and we said you can classify companies according to the people who are in charge, first of all, that you can classify company according to the people who are controlling the company. Oh, this is easy. Why was I using the, see, I'm technologically challenged. Huh? Anyway, so you can classify company according to people who are in control, and there you end up having, is it controlled by the government? Is it controlled by the private members? And companies controlled by the government have a name, parastatals. You can look at companies in terms of, is it a subsidiary? Is it a parent or a holding company? You can look at companies in terms of, is it a chartered company? That is how they formed. And my assumption is you're in a position to explain all those things. Okay. So before we continue, let me just do some house clearing. Is there anybody who went through those notes and there was something which wasn't clear? Or you've not gone through the notes? Which one is it? Just be honest. Is there anything that was complicated there? Guys? Okay. Anyway, find time, go through the notes, see what it is. So, because you might think you have time, but there is the irony. When are the exams? When are you doing exams? You are in May. Exams are in? Or you don't want to think that far ahead. When are the exams? So you don't have much time. Remember, we only meet twice in a week. So you probably have like 5-6 weeks, which means 5-6 meeting times, okay? So yeah, that August is not, we are in, say, June, July, August, so you only have 2 months. So don't be like, I have the notes and I look at them. So let's move on, okay? So in the last class, we talked about business organizations like sole proprietor and a company. Today, we're talking about partnership, and then we'll be done, partnership and corporate societies, and then you're done with topic 1. And under partnerships, okay, of the many things you need to understand exactly what is a partnership, what are its traits, why would you even go for one, what's wrong with it, how do you form one, and supposing you choose not to register it, what will happen to you? So let's start by what you know going towards what you don't know, because again, as I said, with things like company law, it's just English, okay? The reason why people fail company law is not because they don't know the answers, just because they express it in a rather not so clear way. And that is why I usually say, make the mistake in class, give a bad definition in class, because no one is going to punish you here. But in exams, the examiner will punish you. So let's start by, okay, going through all that. We also study cooperative societies, what are they, traits, advantages, and all that. Now let's start with the partnership, okay? And I will conclude with the distinction between all these. When you talk about a partnership, what comes to your mind? And here's what I want you to understand. When you say a partnership is a business between 2 or more people, that's not it. You have to be very specific, okay? It's a business or an economic association or a business, or whichever one you want to use, carried out by 2 to 20 people. Are we clear on that? 2 to 20, okay? And in fact, to explain what could possibly go wrong here, let me give you a case here, okay? Because it's law and you're looking at cases. So look at this case. What we do is just insert a new thing here and forget about this one. Yep. So if you just a moment there. Okay, there. So now let's assume that we have a business, and in this business, we have, like, give me a name. Let's just come up with something. If you had to start a business, what business would you be dealing with? Anybody? Guys? If you had to start a business, what business could it be? Alice, Kenneth, Hilda, all of you guys. If you had to start a business, what business would you start? Hello, guys, are we together? Can you hear me? Consulting. Okay, I need, the reason why I'm insisting on the on the feedback is because I have no way of knowing if you are there or you're not there. So let's go with the consulting idea. So let's say we're starting a business, and it's a consulting business. And so we are consulting on what? Taxes. Let's do that. Taxes, okay? So pay attention. Here's the case. Now, in this business, we end up consulting for XYZ company. That's what they tell us. The business called XYZ. And then they owe us 1.2 million or something. And then they don't pay. Okay, so we go to court. So follow along. So they don't pay us, and therefore we go to court. Now, while we are in court, so it gets tricky. While we are in court, it turns out that XYZ has 30 people running it, and it's not registered as a company. Okay, so 30 people running that business, it's not registered as a company. And yet we're operating under the assumption that, we just had a name, XYZ Enterprise, and that is what we are going with. Now that they've not paid us and we've gone to court, and then it's turning out that it's not registered as a company. So what do you think is going to happen here? How do we get our money back? From whom do we get our money back? Come on, you guys are doing law. I mean, that's a case. Okay. So who's going to give us our money? Kenneth, Alice, Miriam, go ahead.
From the 30 people.
Come again? There are 30 people, yeah. 30 people, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the ones who will pay.
So they're the ones who are supposed to give us the money, right?
Yes, yes.
And why is that? Why not XYZ?
Because it is not a registered company.
And yeah, so that's a first problem. It's not a registered company, and we can also not say that it's a partnership. Why is it not a partnership? Because 2.
It is more than 10.
So there's these 10 extra people, right? So you see, that's the catch. That's the catch. If that was an exam question, you'll see it in probably in your notes or in one of those past papers. So the catch is the number of people involved. And that is why these things, they look like if they're fairly straightforward. Not registered, exceeded. Yes, Maxwell. So that's the thing. They exceeded the number of people required. Okay. And that is the reason why the number of people involved in a business becomes very important. And that's also why you just can't say a partnership is a business carried out by 2 or more. 2 or more is an answer you give in entrepreneurship. And the entrepreneurship teacher says you are right. But in law, you say that you're not getting away with it. And even the idea of 20 depends, because sometimes in banking sector, they might limit it to 15. So usually, but rarely, never really passes 20. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to know. Now, notice, you guys as accountants, when you start your business, it's not going to be called an accounting company limited. It's going to be called an accounting firm or an audit firm. Why do you think they do that? Why do you think they call it audit firm or accounting firm? Anybody wants to give it a try? Come on, you guys see the. In fact, Kenneth, this was the idea. You're the one who said a consultancy, which means it will be a consultancy firm. So why do we call it a firm and not?
I'm really trying to figure it out why they call it firms and not companies.
The answer is simple. How do you call the boss of or shareholders or the people who form an audit? You call them what? You call them partners, right? You as an accountant, if you start your own audit firm, you're going to call the other person that you're in that business with, you call them a partner. Yeah. So Alice, you're right, because it's made up of partners. The same thing happens with law firms. In law firm, the highest position you get as a director is, you become a partner. That's like the highest. That's when you start splitting profit. So, but it doesn't fall under this category of partnership. I mean, the nature is partnership, but then it's a company. So it's going to be limited. And that is also the reason why you'll notice in audit, you cannot have a company as your auditor. You'll have a company, you'll be a client of a company, but that company will give you a specific human being, and that will be the auditor. So in as much as he or she has their team, because a company is an artificial person, it can't do audit, and therefore there's going to be a particular human being. So the point here is, we are still under category 1 or part 1 of company law, where we're just studying how to form companies. And so far, we've seen there's a problem with sole proprietor. Okay, we saw that last week. And today we are saying, all right, what if you decide to go for a partnership? And the first place is, well, you need to know the number of people involved. Now that you know the number of people involved, then the next question is, what exactly is the trait of this partnership as a form of business organization? And here's the weird part, by the way, before we even go further. If let me just pick a name here. If John, and if somebody is called John and they're to start a business with a female, what's the female likely to be called? John, and the female version will be what? Give me a name. Come on, that one, Pia, you guys are thinking hard.
Mary.
Thank you, John and Mary. Okay, it's always John and Mary, huh? Like, what else? Peter and, I don't know. So John and Mary, they start a business, right? So in order for it to be a partnership, these guys don't even have to register anything. When these two people carry on a business, in fact, if you undertake any economic activity with an aim of making profit, okay, and there are 2 of you, or even 3 or even 4, whatever, it doesn't, as long as it doesn't go above 20. You've not registered anything. You just found a room, you paid rent, you put things inside there, you start selling them. Or you find a room and then you put computers and then you start consulting for IT firms. It doesn't, whatever. We'll call that one a partnership. So that's the first thing you need to understand here. Okay. The whole idea of was it registered doesn't even matter. In fact, the only reason why you register a partnership, well, it's not the only reason, it's one of the main reasons, is because you need a bank account and because you're going to be worried about KRA. Like when it comes to taxes, how do we pay? Because with a sole proprietor, you pay taxes using your own personal identification number, right? With a partnership, it's a problem. Whose PIN are we using? And then it's like, I don't want you to use mine. Then let's register the business and then it will have its own identification number. And then we can use that. But still, it's a partnership, okay? Now, there is a contractual relationship between the partners and the business or the partners towards each other, in which case that will lead to the principal-agent relationship. There's a hyphen there. Principal-agent relationship, meaning what? If you recall, in the law of agency, there's the principal, and then there is somebody else who's acting on behalf of the principal. So in this case, the partners can act on behalf of each other. Like if I get a deal, I bring it to the business, then the other guy is also bound by that deal. Why? Because you have a contractual relationship with each other as well as with the business. Are we together up to that bit? By the way, if you are moving fast, you just say, come on, repeat that part, because you need value for your money, man. You've paid and therefore you need to get 110%. So are we on the same page here? And I just want you to understand one thing. Don't look at these from the lens of entrepreneurship. Look at these from the legal angle. Are we together, Miriam? Okay. Look at it from the legal angle. Don't look at it using your entrepreneurship knowledge, because no one is going to ask you that in exams. All the questions you'll get will be from a legal angle. In fact, from next week, we'll start looking at past papers, because at least now we are done with a topic after this. Okay. So moving on. Of course, you're going to share the profits, which means you also share the losses. The business is legal, as I've said, you don't even have to register it. Now, here's the interesting part. The liability is unlimited. What does that mean? What does that mean, Hilda? When you say liability is unlimited, what does that mean? Alice, what do you make of that?
The obligation is unlimited.
Yeah, you're still making it complicated, because now then the question is which obligations? So if the business
Yeah,
is in debt, you can use that. Go ahead.
the partners will have to pay for the debts.
See, that's the thing, right? So if the business is in
Yes.
debt, the partners are in debt. If the partners are in debt, the business is in debt. Okay. Maxwell
Yes.
says the owners will be liable to pay the debt. Yep. So the owners will be liable to pay the debt beyond the capacity of the business to do so. Anyway, the point here is that if you are in debt, the business is in debt. And you know, this is the one thing that people don't seem to understand about companies. It's so interesting. I don't know if the problem is usually maybe at that point you don't have the mind to register a business, but you know, you can just put anything, like you can, anything that you can own under your name as a human being, you can own it under a company's name. That's that's the first thing you need to understand. And the second thing is a company doesn't have to sell anything. You know, that thing of what exactly you're selling is because I don't want to say in Africa, I just want to say the way we are brought up. We've always been brought up with this mindset of if you start a business, it has to be successful. And legally speaking, if you start a business, I mean, if you register a company, it doesn't have to be trading. It's just a name and a bank account. And then that can own stuff. Like if this guy, John here, and I'm using that to explain this, okay? So if this John here has a guy called John, what account, which bank are they using? Let me say Equity, because I don't have an account in Equity. Okay. So Equity, they're in Equity. And this guy probably drives a Range Rover. Okay, allow me to be as shallow and as materialistic as possible. So they're driving a Range Rover, right? How much money do you think they have in their account? And then you might say, whatever, you think they have 2 million. But then if this guy gets into trouble, okay, remember we talked about companies last week. So if John is taken to court because they parked their Range Rover in front of someone's house, and that person says that is trespass or that is false imprisonment. Basically, it's a tort, okay? And I'm suing you, and I was scared for my life, and then blah blah blah, and now I want 200,000. You know, this guy will be forced to pay that money. But let's reverse the thing. If John registered a business called ABC, which is just a holding company, that's it. It doesn't sell anything. It's a holding company. And then this holding company owns a Range Rover. And John is driving that Range Rover. And this holding company has 2 million in form of share capital, which it never touches, because if you touch the money, you have to pay tax. If you leave it there, there is no tax, because It's not income, it's capital in the business. You guys are accountants, you need to know that, right? So in this case, in Equity Bank, they only have like 15,000 because, because maybe one day they'll need to eat lunch. So you take them to court and they don't tell you anything. You're there hiring your expensive lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And then the court says 200K. And then John is like, okay, that's nice. Except I'm broke, bankrupt. I only have 15K, so I can't pay you 200. So bankrupt. And then you're like, but you're driving a Range Rover. Of course I am. It's not mine, it belongs to the company. So you see, that means John's relationship with this company is limited. But if you flip things, if the relationship is unlimited, or rather the liability is unlimited, it means not only are we talking about debts, every other obligation, like contractual obligations, are also going to bind you. So the point is that there is no difference between a sole proprietor and a partnership. The only difference is the number of people involved. That's it. As far as everything else is concerned, more or less the same. Are we together up to that part? In terms of liability, are we together? Right. And one more thing, which I said in the last class, since some of you were not there, this issue of liability from a company perspective, a company can be limited, okay? Let me just say LTD. We are doing partnership, but I'm talking about a company because we did that in the last class. So a company can also be limited by shares, okay? Or by guarantee. And we'll see these in topic 4. But the idea is, if a company is limited by shares, it means the company's relationship with you is only limited to the number of shares you've paid for. So if Kenneth, let me use your name here, if you don't mind. So if Kenneth buys shares in XYZ, and then you buy 3,000 shares, and you only pay for 2,000. So these are the ones you've paid. And then there is 1,000 that is unpaid. So what is happening here is that as far as the company is concerned, their liability towards you is only whatever 2,000 is worth, because that is what you gave them. That is the money they took from you. You, on the other hand, if that company is in need of money, the much you can give them is whatever 1,000 shares are worth. That is the extent of your liability towards that particular company. So your liability is limited by the shares you've paid for or not. That is in terms of shares, or that is the relationship between the company and the members or shareholders. Okay? And you see, with partnership, we don't have that. So I hope for those who are not there, that makes sense. But we'll still repeat that when we get to shares. If anybody has a question, you can ask. And of course, with the partnership, people voluntarily join the partnership. So now, since I'm the one who's talking and saying a lot of things here, here's a question. Why would you why would you start a partnership? What are the advantages of a partnership? So we can freestyle here. Tell me what you think. Because the fact that it's happening, the fact that it exists, it means it has benefits. It's basically, think of it this way. It's Darwinism, okay? Everything that exists at the moment must be serving a purpose. That's the weird thing about life. So that purpose can be positive, it can be negative, it doesn't matter. Everything that, think of it this way, is the irony. Why do we have thieves? I would have said, why do we have pastors? But I'm just going for the negative. Why do we have thieves? So what purpose do they serve? Because think of it this way, if there was no evolutionary advantage to someone being a thief, then the first thief would have been killed and his genetics would have ended. They would never given birth and there won't be thief number 2. But the fact that we have thieves means there is a purpose they're serving. Whether that purpose is negative or positive to them, it doesn't matter. It's just part, thieves are just people in the supply chain. The difference is that they don't want to pay the price of something, so they take it. Okay. So with that mindset, why do we have partnerships? It means it must serve a certain advantage. Okay. So Maxwell puts it this way, you can pull the expertise together. That's advantage number 1. Anything else? Come on, guys. You know, if you don't answer this, it means you want me to say all those things. Let's split the job here.
You get to share the losses and profits.
The losses part is an advantage. The profit part
Yeah, it's
is a
not.
disadvantage, right? So you get to
Yeah.
share the losses, and we have Alice sharing profit. Do you really think that's a good idea, Alice? Like you make 200K, and then I'm like, hey, remember I'm your partner in this thing, and I want 100. And then suddenly you remember you wanted to buy this thing that was costing 150K, and now you can't buy. So you see, sharing profit is a disadvantage. Sharing losses is an advantage, right? Anything else before we move on? The other guys who are quiet, you're waiting to talk in exams, huh? Okay. Are you?
I'll think of its flexibility and
Mhm.
the ease in terms of setting it up.
Again, that's the thing. The legality when it comes to forming a partnership are quite minimal. Okay. It's two people, business idea, go ahead. Because when you talk about bank account, those are not legal problems, these are just financial problems. Okay. So it's very easy to set. Alice, do you have something to say? Okay, so we have an idea there, right? Fairly straightforward. They're easy to form. Okay, I mean easy to form. You can pull resources together. Maxwell said that. Better decision making. Remember, in a sole proprietor where you're alone, decisions are faster. Making a decision faster is not the same as making a good decision. I mean, they're both advantages, just a contextual thing. So here, because there are two of you, then it means actually if you're going to do a partnership, make sure you're three. Don't do two. Three means if you say yes, the other person say yes, there's always going to be a no. But again, it depends. So there's flexibility in terms of like management and things like that. You share risk. The fact that you all have the same interest makes it easy. There is a specialization. Protection of interest just means that you're both working towards the same thing. Secrecy, the assumption, this is a big assumption. You're just assuming that you work very hard to protect the business secret. As opposed to, say, in a company. You see, in a company, this is what people don't get about companies, which is very interesting. See, if you start a company right now, it's you, okay? And then, actually, it's going to be you and someone else, but let's say it's you, because you can tell your brother to just sign something. Then you say they have 0.5 shares or something, or it doesn't matter. So it's you, right? When you start raising money by taking money from outside, you start having shareholders. The more this number increases, okay, the less of this company you actually own. So think of it as a pie or pizza, whatever circular thing. The more you start giving out pieces of it, the less of it you have. And these people that are buying shares, they are also the owner of that company. And you may not really end up enjoying from like secrecy or anything. Because here's the thing, people don't invest in, or people don't buy shares because they want to run the company. People buy shares for different reasons. Some people buy shares because they want to control the company. Okay. I was having this conversation sometimes back with someone who was very mad at the late Chris Kirubi. And this person, I think, the dad worked at Kenya Railways, and so I understand why he was mad at that guy. It was like, these people came in, took money, left. It's like, what do you think shareholders do? They're not there to make the business, all of them. Some people will buy shares in a business, they buy like 51%, and then they decide, I don't want to run this business, I'm just going to sell the parts, sell the assets, recover my money, and go away. And that means employees are going to be fired. And whose problem is that? Their problem for being employees. So you see, that's something that doesn't happen necessarily in a partnership, because in a partnership, it's you and the other person, and there is no shares to sell. Another partner can't just come in without your approval. So that's an advantage. But then that advantage is just because you're operating in a smaller league. Now, what's the problem with it? What are the disadvantages? Because if it has advantages, it must have disadvantages. So one, we know the thing about your liability. It's unlimited. Okay? The other thing is that if you are two of you and the other person dies, then that's it. The business is over. It's no longer a partnership. Okay? Capital is limited. Why? Because it just comes down to how much money you have. And the idea that I have a share. This is like, by the way, you know those people who say I have shares in a circle. Okay? How do shares in a circle work? If you want to sell them, what happens? Anybody? I'm not in any circle, so that's why I'm asking. Just want to know the way they operate for you guys. For me, I'm too bad at attending meetings, so I just buy mutual funds and never go for any meeting. So how do shares in a circle work? For those of you who are in circles, if you need your money right now, what do you do? Anybody?
The shares in a circle, they are different. There's that one that the members they contribute, but it is non-withdrawable. It can only be transferred to another member. And then there are those like monthly deposits that the members contribute. Those ones they can remove, they can withdraw.
So is it like if I need money, when is today? Today is Tuesday. So if I need money tomorrow, can I just walk into the circle's treasurer or accountant, whatever, and say, look, I want my money.
It's called front office, like FOSA. So yes, you just go and you can make a withdrawal. That is for the withdrawable deposits, but there are those shares that can't be withdrawn. They can only be transferred.
So whatever I'm withdrawing is money that I put there. But as far as the shares are concerned, someone else has to buy, and this person has to be a member, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's the same problem you have in partnerships. Because you might say, well, we have a partnership and we have 50-50 shares in it. But then the day you're broke, you just want to be like, look, I want my money back. There are rules. You see, you don't have that problem with companies, especially, and by companies, I mean public companies. Right now, if I want money, I just go to app. Actually, I go to app. I use an app, depending on my broker, okay? And then I just say sell. And then whatever, I'll just wait for the money minus the transactions and all that. So you see, that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but you're just saying in terms of partnerships, it is a disadvantage, okay? So the same thing with circles, and we'll come to circles in a few minutes, only that we'll call them cooperative societies. So that's the thing. And of course, possibilities of conflict because it's you and the other person. Right, now, the moral here is simple. If you are to start a business, remember all this falls under formation of companies or business, the nature of business, types of business that you can have. So if you are to start a sole proprietor, you know the advantages and the disadvantages. And the two big takeaways here is this one, the issue of liability. That's number one. Okay. And well, for now, we'll just go with that one because, I mean, okay, number two will be the fact that the company is not a person and so on. But those are the two important things that will make you want to go for a company as opposed to a partnership or a sole proprietor. Because the bigger you are, okay, the more you become a target. That is just the way things are in life, okay? The more money you have, the easier it is that customers are going to buy your product and then be like, I bought, what is that thing that, you know those, and I'm just going to be sexist. So the ladies who are in this class, sinikasirikie sana. So the ladies, right? You know those things that women drink because they're trying to lose weight, and then they see something on, I don't know, YouTube or something. So the problem is that you buy that, okay? You buy some, what are they, Alice? What do you guys normally drink? Those two green stuffs. You take some vegetable blend and then lemon, whatever. So imagine if somebody's selling that thing. You drink it, get stomach upset, and you sue them for product liability. Okay? Normally, if it's a small business, like you bought juice there, you're not going to sue that lady because of that gent, whoever is selling, because it's a small business. But if Safaricom start doing that, and by Safaricom I mean a company to that extent, they will get a lot of lawsuit. People will be like, I went to that shop, I fell down. They failed to put a warning saying slippery floor. So you start getting into the realms of torts, the law of torts, specifically occupiers liability. So my point here is, if your business is small, then you can do sole or you can do partnership. But then as you start to scale, then avoid these two, okay? Because one, it won't even favor you in terms of tax. Two, it won't even favor you in terms of your employees or even workers. Basically, lawsuits won't stop coming because now you're big. The more money you make, the more people want from you, okay? That's just how things work. It's the reason why if you want to know that somebody is rich or they intend to be rich, the moment you start valuing privacy, it means you're realizing you have a lot to lose and you don't want people around you. If you really want to hang around people, it means you have nothing to lose. So now you move out of this and you go for the company. Okay, and that is the reason why after topic 1, everything we'll be looking at will be companies. Any question up to that bit before we move on to cooperatives? So the point here is easy to form, 2 to 20. That's the whole idea. But there is one more thing that is important here, is the partnership deed. What is a partnership deed? Again, you can just borrow from your entrepreneurship knowledge. What is a partnership deed? What do you think it is? Maxwell? Mercy, welcome. Maxwell, what do you have? What's a partnership deed?
It is a partnership agreement.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much the thing, the agreement between two partners. Let's make up let's just make up a case here real quick. Let me just put in that one and then you can use this one for the case. So look at this example, okay? Let's say we have okay, I'm really not that good with names, so I'll just say John, and we are told John goes with Mary. And then, so John and Mary, okay, guys, pay attention. So John and Mary are, they have a partnership, okay? And so, well, they have a partnership, we don't need to give it a name. And then they're doing business with XYZ. And XYZ are basically suppliers, suppliers. So these people have invoiced them or have supplied them items worth 2 million. And this is in 20, okay, let's say this is in January. So to avoid in January. Now, 2 people, business, 2 million, debt, okay? And then there's a third person here who wants to join. So John, Mary, a third person who can join is called Joseph. So Joseph decides to join this partnership. Are we together up to there? Yes, we are. Now, Joseph joins the partnership on April. And then in May, these people decide to sue. So they are suing these guys, this partnership, for this 2 million debt that they haven't paid. So you can see where this is heading. So my question is Joseph going to pay or not? And why? Do you go for that answer? So what do you think? Is Joseph going to contribute towards payment of that debt or not? And if not, why? So tell me what you think. Again, these are cases from your past papers. So what do you have there? Kenneth, what do you think?
I would think that all of them will be liable to pay.
Including Joseph, who joined in April. Okay. The rest, what do you think? Miriam, what do you have?
Joseph will have to pay.
Joseph will have to pay. Okay. Maxwell think he will pay. He will pay as from the point he joined. Okay, so that means he's not going to pay this one. That's a new take on that. Well, that's the interesting part here. Okay. Now, if this question was, say, 12 marks, don't worry, you can skip the question and look at one that is easier, right? But what option do you have that the question is going to be easy? So look, here's the truth. The truth is, all of you are right. The people say he will pay, you're right. Maxwell, who seems to be the only one who says, no, he's not going to pay because he was not part of that. He'll pay from when. You're also right. But then the explanation is important. So all these things just comes down to one thing. What does the partnership deed say? Okay, are we together? That question, it just comes down to the partnership deed. Now, here's the thing. Here's what you need to pay attention to, okay? Okay, first of all, the general rule is that in a partnership, a partner is only liable for the debts that were accrued when he or she was a partner. Let me repeat that. You are only liable, that's the general rule. You are only liable for the debts that were accrued or that the business got into when you are a partner. Now, because that is a general rule, means we have exceptions to that rule. And the exceptions will be if you join a partnership and the partnership deed, which as Mercy defined it, the agreement between those partners, states that you're going to be liable for the debts that were accrued when you are not a partner, then you're going to pay those debts. And that is the reason why you're both right. The only problem is the explanation, okay? So if this was a question in exam, first of all, let me just give you this so that going forward, in cases, so guys, again, pay attention here. When you're given cases, which you will be given, okay, cases, you always need to know three things. Number one, facts. Facts from what? Facts of the law. Number two, proof from this case that these facts were violated or not. And number three, your comment, which is mostly the conclusion. So you always need to know those three things. So like in this case, what are the facts? And just said the general rule is that if you join a partnership, you're going to be liable for the debts that, you know, the partners, I mean, if you join a partnership, you're not liable for the debts that were accrued before you. Those are the facts. But, you had another one, but if the partnership deed stated that you're going to be liable for those debts, then you are going to be liable. And then now your proof is what? This guy joined in April. So generally, it's not supposed to pay unless the partnership deed says so. So because you don't have a partnership deed, in that case, I've not told you anywhere that there was a partnership deed. Your conclusion will just be, he will pay if the partnership deed says so. Otherwise, he will not pay. The end, and you get your marks. Are we together? And we'll continue doing this as we look at this again when we start looking at past papers from next week or something. So are we together up to that bit in terms of those case laws and stuff? Good. So now let's move on. Now, where were we? We're talking about the partnership deed. So this partnership deed is an agreement that you create as partners. And the deed will show, so think of the deed as memorandum of association in a company, okay? So in this case, it's in a partnership. So it will show the name of the firm, the nature of the business, basically the address, that's also address, how long will the partnership take, the capital contributed, how do you share profits, okay? Those ones are all going to be indicated there. There's also the question of the duties of the partners. What exactly are you supposed to be doing? So in short, your salaries and all that stuff. In short, it's a contract, not really a contract. It's more of a memorandum of association. Don't use that word because memorandum of association are for companies, and we shall see that next week. But this is an agreement that you create. So if you have this one, okay, it means you're going to register the business. Once you register partnership, then that's a good thing because now the partnership can be limited. Okay, I want us to understand this because this can be confusing. When we say a partnership is limited, what we mean is the relationship between the partners. Again, pay attention. Partner A and partner B. The relationship they have with each other is going to be, and with the business, is going to be limited to things like how much they contributed. But still, they are on a larger scale of things, the relationship is still unlimited. Limited just means that from a partnership point of view, it just means that if you make 1,000, you're not sharing it 50-50. We are sharing it based on the ratio that we agreed on. But if the business is in debt of 1,000, we are all going to go into our pocket and contribute towards the payment of that business. So the question is, how do you contribute? Well, most of the time, you're just going to contribute based on how we share profit. To those who take more are expected. I think that is like a Bible thing, probably in page 7 or something. So those who are going to like get more profit will also, contribute more. So that is the reason why if you have no choice and you go for a partnership, then make sure you have a partnership deed in place. Right, I think that concludes that unless somebody has a question. Any question? So shoot the questions. Any question? Hilda, I hope you're together because you are quiet. And who else is quiet? And Ayuel, cool. You are also quiet. I hope we are on the same page. Remember, if there is any question you ask, this is not, thank you, Matzo, we're on the same page. This is not religion. That's what I usually say in all my classes. It's not religion. You don't suffer in silence and get bonus points. You ask as many questions as possible. This is business, okay? You've paid, it's an economy. This is an economic transaction. You've paid to learn, and therefore you have to learn. That's pretty much the idea. Now look, what if you don't register a partnership? Like, what if you just run it that way? Just say, me and my friend, we are going to be buying things from, I don't know, Kenya or Uganda, and then we sell. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So at this point, if you fail to do that, one, when you go to court, that particular business cannot make a claim against a third party. I want us to understand that. I'm not saying you cannot sue someone. I'm just saying if John and Mary are going to court, they're not going to sue that person using JM Enterprise as a name. They'll sue this person as John and Mary being the complainants. I'm using complainant because that is what the police will just say, complainant. But anyway, the right term is that they're the plaintiffs, okay? So John and Mary as the plaintiff. But if the business was registered as a partnership, then it will be JM Enterprise, which is suing. And then under JM will say that the partners are blah, 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 okay? Again, the business itself cannot file a lawsuit against the partners because it doesn't exist, okay? The partners of an unregistered firm can also not file a lawsuit against the firm. I mean, you've already said that. No, we haven't. We've said you can't sue a third party, you can't sue, the business can't sue you, you can't sue the business, okay? And the partners will not be suing each other, okay? As partners, they will just sue each other as this guy who took my money, and these other guys. Because you're partners of what exactly? That's the question. You see, with legal cases, the law is kind of weird because with the law, there's always the question of define something. And then if you can't define that thing probably doesn't exist. Okay? Yep. So if partners are yeah, exactly. Okay, look, it's a bit weird, like because what Maxwell is asking is look, if the problem with having more is whatever more you have, if that more in this case means you get to keep more profit. That's what. So if you're keeping more profit, it means you're also going to keep more losses, which means you're also going to contribute more because your capital is bigger. That's just how it works, okay, in business, or rather in partnerships. So, but then again, think of it this way: if you contributed more, you'll probably insist to be one of the active partners. You won't be a nominal partner because a nominal partner just puts their name there and then they walk away. And you also want to be like a quasi partner. You want to be an active one because you have a lot to lose in that business. So that's pretty much the whole idea. And that's not even new. It's the same as with companies. The person who has more shares in a company will, for the most part, just look at the company in terms of, I want to make sure the CEO is the right person. Although for them, they're never going to take their money out of the pocket and contribute. So, anyway, that's the thing with companies. Any question up to there before, the rest of things you can just read before we move on to corporate society, which is a quick run through and we are done. Any question? But then remember, this is just, we've not even started doing law. We're just looking at these things from a business angle. Any question? So remember, what I'm trying to say here is, of those three choices, the sole proprietor, the partnership, and the company, if you are small, obviously you start with the sole proprietor or a partnership. But then once you make around, I don't know, like 20,000, and you're not using that money to pay rent and food, then you probably need to take 8,000 and register a company. And then you start running things from that angle. All right. Don't be comfortable because the legal implications of a sole proprietor or a partnership, sometimes you never make. It's like if you go to up country, for those of you who go to up country, like I don't know if this happens, but all up countries have this thing. Like I've been to various. When you alight up, what is it called? The stage. There are those shops that are usually close to a stage. You'll notice this even in your own up country. There are always those shops that you saw them in like 2020, and then you go back in 2024, and it's still the same thing. The shelves are never full. Okay, the person who's selling there is always like sleepy, whatever. So that's the thing that happens with small businesses. The moment you identify your business as small, it just doesn't grow. And that's the reason why if you have a company, you'll be forced to do things unless, Anyway, let's move on to the next one, the cooperative society, which is a bit different. Okay. When you talk about a cooperative society, this is not a company. It's just weird that it enjoys some freedoms that companies have, but it isn't a company. Like the example Alice was giving us of the SACCOs. What exactly do SACCOs do? What is the whole point with SACCOs?
Basically,
Alice, you just cut. Come again. I think your microphone just went mute.
SACCOs, they offer loans to members.
All right. So loans.
Their main assets.
All right. So that's the whole idea, that they can give loans at cheaper rates. I'm saying cheaper in quotes because they'll be like 1%. Is it 1%? Usually just adds up to 12%, right? But yeah, so that's the whole idea with SACCOs and SACCOs and chamas and what else. Now, all those things just fall under cooperative society. They're just societies, okay? And these are independent organizations which you join voluntarily, but their aim is usually to either uplift the members economically, socially, or culturally. So they are not designed as businesses that are supposed to do profits. If you're an accountant in a SACCO, how do you call profit? You don't call it profit. You probably call it surplus, right? You guys are the accountants. You're supposed to tell me if I'm wrong or right, so that I don't embarrass myself in the next class, right? What do you call those profits? Do you call them profits or surplus? Which one is it? Yeah, you guys are quiet again.
Which one? I think surplus.
It is surplus, right? I mean, I did
Yeah.
that. When was it? I did account. Anyway, so surplus, right? So because the moment you call them profit, what happens? Surplus. Yep. So the moment you call them profits, what happens? You need to pay tax. I mean, you'll still pay tax in circles, but if you call them profit, you're going to have to pay that corporate tax. So that's why they're not called profit. Again, as I told you, the law is a weird thing. You change the name of something and we think that situation changes. It's like politics. You know, the way in politics, politicians will change the name of a scenario and then you think the scenario has changed. They say, we are hustlers fighting dynasty. And then you forget the dude is telling you that he's a billionaire. Anyway, look. So that's the way it works here. With cooperative societies, the idea is not to make profit. The idea is just to empower these members from whatever dimension they're interested in. So with these things, the membership is usually open. Okay, open in quotes because it would depend with the rules. But if you meet those criteria, then you become a member. The association is voluntarily, no one is forcing you to get into that. They are state controlled, okay, which is weird because the NGOs and SACCOs Act of like 2013, that thing has never, they were to amend it and then it disappeared. Because doing that would have, you know, in 2013, back in 2012, 2013, it was discovered that a lot of these societies and trusts and SACCOs and NGOs, the rich guys were using them to launder money. Okay. And one of them that was closed, and then I don't know if they reopened. It was the Kalonzo Musyoka Foundation. So anyway, the point is, people can use them for all nefarious reasons, but they're state controlled. The other trait is their source of finance. Where do SACCOs get money from? So it could be from members' donations. It could be from government grants. If they apply for grants don't have to be from the government, but grants, okay? But I mean, if they have small microeconomic activities, they call them microeconomic activities, because the moment you say these SACCOs on those buses, and then it's like, okay, now let's talk about that. And this is the reason why you have like churches. You know, these churches that, what is the name of this church that makes like millions? CITAM, it is, right? You look at that and realize this is not a church. This is just a big corporation disguised as a church. It's not a Kenyan thing, okay? Even in the US, people do that. When they want to get out of IRS, which is an equivalent of KRA, you start a corporation, a cooperative society, not a corporation, a cooperative society, and then you really work hard that it earn that state of a society. That way, you start getting some benefits from KRA or IRS. So it's not just a Kenyan thing. Anyway, the idea is they're democratic in terms of how they manage. Their motive is not to make profit, but to offer service. So like in this case, the service was a loan. Okay. And now here's where it gets interesting. Notice they are not companies, and yet they're treated as though they are a separate legal entity, meaning the members of this SACCO and the SACCO, I'm using SACCO because that is easier. I'm saying cooperative society is a long term, a long word. So when I say SACCO, I just mean cooperative society, okay? Or NGO or whatever it is, those are examples. So the members are different from the SACCO, and yet the SACCO itself is not an artificial person, or rather, well, let me go back. You see, there are two things here that you need to understand. We have incorporated associations and unincorporated associations. Okay, guys, let's pay attention here. So incorporated associations are the sort of associations that become persons. For example, a company. So under incorporated association, so this is just the law of persons. We did this. We have corporate sole and we have corporate aggregate. I don't know if you remember these things, aggregate. So a corporate sole is where one person holds office. For example, office of the president. There is a difference between Office of the President and Mr. President or Mrs. President, whatever. Mr. President, in this case, Ruto, is a person, a human being, a natural person. Office of the President is an artificial person, which means even if the president takes a leave because he's employed, right, at that point, if he takes a leave and decides to go to watch Formula One, like Uhuru Kenyatta, but they love Formula One, so, whatever. So he goes to watch that. We can be mad. He left us. It's like, yeah, the office is still running because the office is a person. Now, corporate aggregate is like companies where you can have more than one person taking an office. But the thing is, they are all under incorporated associations. Now, negative, okay? Unincorporated associations, these are entities that don't have a separate existence from that of their owners. For example, a sole proprietor and a partnership. And here's where it becomes weird. You see, a cooperative society should be falling in this category because it's not here. And yet, it has a separate legal entity. Why is that? And the reason is simple, because the whole idea behind a cooperative society is to protect the members. That is why we give it a separate entity. Because if you put your money in a circle and you're contributing and chamas or whatever it is, we don't, if that circle has a problem, we're not going to mention your names and say, this circle has a problem and these were the members. No, we have to protect the identity of the members, okay? Because the motive behind a circle is to do what? Is to offer a service. They're not there to exploit people. And that is why they're protected. And that is why, as a trait, contrary to other incorporated associations, this one will have a different, separate existence. All right, those are many words. Any question up to that point? Any question? Mercy? You good? Miriam? Kenneth, Maxwell? Tuko sawa? Come on, guys, you're almost done. Are we on the same page? Right, good. Enough. So those are the traits, right? Now the other things are fairly straightforward. Advantages, disadvantages, all right? So good. But the advantages here will be, we say they're easy to form. Now, when you say something is easy to form or difficult, it's just a question of as opposed to what? Because definitely a cooperative society is not easier to form than a sole proprietor. But all this easy to form, difficult to form is because we are comparing them to a company, okay? Because in the company, there are a lot of things that go on there, like you have to prepare a memorandum and all that stuff, right? But they're relatively easy to form compared to companies, okay? The membership, open, okay? Democracy, because you're going to vote and do things. And is the interesting part. When you vote in a circle, and Alice, you can help me there. So for today, Alice, you're just going to be our circle expert. Until you get to that part where you don't know the answer, right? So in a circle, like how does the voting take place? Is the voting based on how many shares you are or one person, one vote? What is it? And that question is not for Alice, for everybody in this class who understands circles. How does it work?
Are you referring to like the board of directors
No,
or
just whichever.
the different committees?
Whether we are voting to choose like a chairperson or whatever it is, like we're just making a decision. If we involve members in making a decision and they have to vote, whether they're voting for the directors or they're voting for, how does it, because in the company, it's simple. The more shares you have, the more votes you have. Is it the same for circles?
No, there's always a panel where names are suggested and then people are someone proposes someone's name and then they like give you a chance how many people are for this person, how many people are for this person. So if like 5 are for you and 2 are for the other competitor, then they choose you.
All right.
Yeah, so it's just like an open panel.
Okay. So the one thing that you notice with that is it simply means one person, one vote. That is just what I wanted us to understand. One person, one vote. That's it. Irrespective of how much money you have. So if 5 people support you, you win, right? But with a company, here's the interesting bits with the company. If I own 51% shares in a company, which means the rest of you own 49%. Now you can campaign all you want. If you're making a choice between who's going to be the CEO of that company, I'll just say the CEO is going to be my kid. So it's my daughter or my son, and then it's like, we hate this person. It's like, yeah, go get another company because I own majority of the shares. Okay. So that doesn't really happen with SACCO. That is why we say there's a degree of democracy there. In companies, the democracy just comes down to how many shares you have. And that's not even it. It's also a question of not just shares, but the interest, because I can have shares and I don't even care who the CEO is. Okay. So in that case, you can take my shares and vote via proxy, which doesn't happen in SACCOs. In SACCOs, you don't say, I'm voting for this person, and my brother, wife, husband, / whatever, my significant other, also told me to vote on their behalf. You don't do that. So fairly straightforward, okay? Kind of get rid of the whole idea of middleman's profit, where, because in SACCOs, I think the idea is always just the board, the members, and then that's it. Because with companies, things are complicated. Okay? So unless you complicate your SACCO, where like you are having those issues of farmers in coffee sector and tea sector who are complaining of SACCOs exploiting them. That is just, we talked about the existence of thieves and the evolutionary advantage they have. So anyway, that happens. Now, the challenge with these things, of course, there are limitations like capital. If you're going to raise money from members, then the question is just how much do members have? If you're going to put a trust on management, then the question is, who are these managers? If they're useless, then of course the SACCO is going to be useless. Motivation, the degree of competition among SACCOs doesn't necessarily, companies will have proper competition. Like if Safaricom does something, Airtel will be like, what exactly did they do? Okay. And that's not it. I mean, look, M-Pesa, think of something like M-Pesa or Airtel Money. This is already making banks, or at least did make banks think twice about how they operate. Like, it's the weird part. You guys are accountants, so you probably see this if you work in a bank. Somebody comes to a bank, okay? And they want a loan. And then they say, the guy, that person behind the desk with that computer, I don't know. The person who, what is it called? Credit officer or whatever it is, the person who decides whether you get the loan. I don't know, that him or her. Okay. They're like, give me your account number. And then they check your account number. Then they look at you with a funny face because they realize you don't really have money in the account. But then you're like, yeah, but look at my M-Pesa statements. So you notice that most people have very positive M-Pesa statement and very negative bank account statements because the only thing that goes to their bank account is their salary. So that's the reality of many Kenyans. And so you realize that is putting a lot of, the Safaricom thing is putting a lot of competition to banks. But with SACCOs, that isn't really the case. Like the only thing we compete with SACCOs is when somebody's like, this one, the loan, they don't have strict rules, the whole issue of guarantor, those are the only things you look at. So you see that becomes a limitation. And also the idea that the government can give you a grant, depending on the type of SACCO you are, that creates a dependency syndrome, which is just a fancy word of saying it makes it easier for this SACCO to become poor and collapse. Right, now that marks the end of cooperative societies. Any question? Any question? So now you have a choice. If you're running business, you can go the sole proprietor way, you can go the partnership way, you can go the company way. But if you also want another entity, which is service related, you can go the cooperative society way. Any question up to that bit? Fair enough. So now The only thing you need to take from all those, after you've understood what they are, is the way they relate. For example, what are the distinctions between, say, a company and any of these other forms of business, like the distinction between, or the difference between a company and a partnership? And you realize the distinction will be in terms of registration. A company must be registered. Okay. What about members? How many people make up a company? Minimum, how many members do you need? If you have to start a company, minimum number of people you need. And remember, there's private and public company. So with public, how many do you need? Private, how many do you need? Come on, guys, we need to end this thing in the next 10 minutes. So these are questions you answer and we move on. How many? Oh yeah, why are you quiet suddenly? Miriam, you there? And Mercy, and you will.
5
Mhm.
members,
For which one? For private or
5
for public?
members. Public.
Hilda, minimum 2, maximum 50 private. Actually, that's it. It's not 5, it's. So Miriam, as Hilda puts it, with private, minimum 2 members, maximum 50. Thank you, Hilda. With public, minimum 7, obviously no maximum because it's public, so no maximum. That's important, right? And it's weird, the Companies Act 2015 and its amendment, for some weird reason, there's a line there that says a person can start a company. I mean, it says yes, 2 to 50, but then it contradicts itself at some point. It says a person can start a company. So my assumption is that person there, they just mean an artificial person can also start a company, which means a company can start another company by simply buying the shares and owning it. Okay. But anyway, just to be safe, go 2 to 50 for private, 7 to no maximum for public. But with a partnership, we know it's 2 to 20. Now, the legal status, a company is a person, a partnership is not a person. Okay. Authority of the members, well, shareholders just care about their shares, but with partners, they're actually involved in the day-to-day running of the company. Contractual capacity, a company can contract under its own name. A partnership will only contract under its name if it is registered, but still it won't be owning property. This property that it thinks it owns will still be owned by the members. Okay. Management of a company done by the board of directors. Management of a partnership, well, the partners. So that's just as far as partnerships and companies are concerned. And you also need to know the difference between a partnership and okay, you have all these things continuing here, like the liabilities of the members, we know that in a company, unlimited, partnership, limited, okay, powers and stuff like that. So you need to know, not only do you need to know these, you also need to know like the similarities between companies and partnership. If you see me scrolling, it's because I'm just going to be repeating myself and you'll read them in the notes. But if you have a question, you ask. So just because I'm assuming they're easy to understand, doesn't mean that they're easy to understand. I'm just assuming that because I'm not sitting for exams. You guys are going to be tested on these. So don't be like, yeah, you scrolled past the thing, therefore that is easy. Now, similarities. Both companies and partnerships want to make profit. That's the first thing. In both cases, they are going to raise money from the members, only that in one case, they're called partners. In the other one, they'll be called shareholders or guarantors. But then remember, not all companies have shares. Some companies just have guarantors and that's it. Okay. So they have members. Now, what about companies and say cooperative society? So that's something we can look at again quickly. The difference can be in terms of objectives. Remember, the objective of a cooperative society is to do what? To offer service. There's a question here. Does societies have a maximum and a minimum number? Well, yes. Usually it's supposed to be 100. But so again, as I said, this thing was supposed to be changed in 2013, and that act, when Mr. Kenyatta was the president, it just moved Nekapotea. Okay, so it's one of those weird things that is just open. Okay. So because this was supposed to change, not only change corporate society, it was supposed to also change the way NGOs were operating, and faith-based organizations, and those things. Okay. Anyway, so there's that. There's the number of members again, which you pointed out. There is the members' liability. Now, explain this to me because we talked about it. How does this work? In a corporate societies, are the members liable for the debts? Like,
Yes, they are.
to what degree?
Let's say, for example, a member wants to like withdraw from a circle,
Mhm.
and they have to first make sure that he has no pending debt. So they will use his remaining deposits to offset those loans that he has, or they will contact his guarantors to pay up for those loans. So yes, he's liable for those loans. But in case he's a defaulter, like he has defaulted more than, is it 90 days? I'm not sure. Now the circle usually has money set aside, like a loan guard,
Mhm.
that caters for this default. So the end result is that these loans are written off,
Okay.
and the circle,
So the circle becomes safe.
yeah,
Kenneth, do you want to say something? Okay.
No, not really.
Okay. So there's that. But the other thing that actually what I was alluding to was, let's say this circle, can we give it a name? So a circle is called, in this case, ABC circle, right? If ABC circle, okay, what is ABC circle doing? Let's assume it's an agriculture thing. Okay. I don't know much about agriculture, but it's interesting. It's one of those things I'm trying to study now. So it's an agricultural thing, and then they got fertilizers. It's weird. A friend of mine called me some weeks back complaining about fake fertilizers, and the guy is from those areas of Kericho, and then I was like, remember when you're in the gym and I told you these things will affect you, and you thought they want to get to you? And life is, these things are cyclic. Whenever bad thing is happening in Mombasa, don't think that because you're in Nairobi it won't get to you. If it is a business thing, it will get to you. Okay, either in form of the bad product or money, because the economy is cyclic. So anyway, now let's say this ABC, okay, they're buying fertilizers from another company, and then they fail to pay, they default. So Alice, in this case, the circle defaults. Okay, and now the circle has a loan of like, or rather a debt of 2 million. How does that, like, do members, can the members of the circle be sued for that debt, or it's just the circle that is going to be sued? And that is not a question for Alice. That is just me trying to make you guys understand this point. I just said that today Alice will be our circle expert. Mpatia cheo.
okay. I'm not sure, but I think no. I don't think the members will be liable to pay a loan that the circle took.
So that's the thing, right? And to the rest, I
Yeah.
hope you're on the same page. Just because one person is answering a question doesn't mean that that was her question. So in this case, notice the members' liabilities. Members are protected. Okay, they're not going to be sued. The circle. So this is one area that circle has, which is similar to a company. Because if a company does the same thing, then we sue the company. We never really go after the shareholders and be like, you guys, you're the owners of this company and you're liable. It's like, no, you're not. I'm only liable to the degree that I've not paid for my shares. And if in fact I've paid for my shares, I'm not liable. Okay. So you just sue the company and then we'll just take the assets and we say we want our money back, and then we run away and start another company. Okay. So that's just what people do. Like these rich types. You think they care. Okay, let me give you an example. I don't know. Let's use an international name. My favorite rich guy right now is Elon Musk, but for now. But let's take a guy like Warren Buffett. The old guy is like one of the best investors. This guy, or okay, let's go to Kenya. Let's forget about those. Let's take James Mwangi. James Mwangi. I would have said let's go with Peter Munga, but I think James Mwangi is more popular than Peter Munga, right? So James Mwangi, let's assume James Mwangi has, because I know he has like billions worth of stake in Equity. It's so weird that Equity has never had another CEO, right? So that's just how it is. So if James Mwangi has shares, let's make up the number here. Let's say he has shares worth 1 billion. Okay, these are shares. So guys, follow along. And he needs, let's say he needs to buy, I don't know, he needs a billion, he needs 500 million to do something. Maybe he's doing some real estate. He wants to create something. He needs 500 million. Now, he can easily sell half of his shares and get this money, right? But there's a problem. If he does that, if he sells these shares, then guys at KRA will be smiling. Okay? They'll be like, yes, we've got him finally. Now he has income. And you know the way things have changed in Kenya so much that even if you have 1,000, you're paying tax. So it will be like between this group of income, you're paying certain percent, and that will be a lot of money. So this guy is smart enough. He's not going to do that. He's not going to touch this. He will go to a bank and say, I need 500,000. Or rather, not 500,000, 500 million. For what? Who cares? I just need it. And I have 1 billion years collateral. And so they'll give him the money, and that money will become debt. And so the KRA guys will be like, hey, this guy is even suffering. Now, on top of everything else that he has a debt of 500 million. We don't even stand a chance of getting something. And then he will continue to operate that way. Okay, so that's how these rich guys operate. So just get rid of this name and replace it with XYZ Limited. And that way the company will continue to just operate. So that's how they protect their members and their liability. So members can protect themselves that way. The company can also protect itself that way. And that's one thing they share with cooperative societies. Okay. In terms of membership, what's the difference? The difference is just that in this case, in the case of a company, the members can become shareholders, and you become a member by buying shares. In a cooperative societies, well, it depends on the rules regarding membership, okay? Like, do you pay registration fee and all those things? But, you know, it's not the same as a company. Management, companies managed by board of directors, okay? Cooperative societies will always obviously be managed by, if it is a board, it's not the same board as that of a company. The board of directors in a company are going to be appointed by shareholders in an AGM, which means you have to be a shareholder first. So it changes the entire structure. Distribution of surplus / profit. So profit for companies will go to members in the form of dividends, if dividends are declared. By the way, that is something you need to understand. Okay, we'll do that in shares. It's not a must for a company to give dividends. Get that? The CEO can say, nope, we are pumping the money back into the company so that you can maximize on our share growth. And that is just the question of profit maximization versus wealth thing creation growth, whatever. You have that problem in financial management anyway. So that kind of marks the end of that. The rest is just going to be how, you know, are they similar with like sole proprietor versus a company and things of that nature. Any question up to that bit, because that marks the end of topic 1. The idea here was just for you to be in a position to understand the various ways in which you can classify, business entities. We say companies, but it's more of business entities. So whether it's a sole proprietor, a partnership, cooperative societies, and the company itself. So now that you understand these, the next thing that you're going to move to is how do you actually form the company. How do you register a company? What are the steps involved? And not just steps, but the legal implications of every step. Like when you create a memorandum of association, what are the legal implications of that? Articles of association, what are the implications? Shares, okay? The issue of liability, whether that liability is based on share or is based on guarantee. So that's the thing you're going to look at in the next class. Right. Any question up to that bit? Any issue that you need clarified as you move on? Anybody with a burning issue that you need to be taken care of so that you can, move forward in peace? Kenneth, Miriam, Hilda, Alice, Ayul, Mercy, Maxwell. Are we good?
No question from my side.
Okay. So, let's see. Good. Now, regarding the notes, we know the rules. I'm going to post them on the WhatsApp. I try to post, the notes are summarized. So, if you're reading something else and you find something that is not there, don't just be like, okay, this was not in the notes that was sent to us and therefore it's not true. No. The only thing I'll tell you is if you go online to read anything, make sure you're not reading something from USA, okay? Or Canada, okay? Because the North America, basically America in general, their law is fairly different. Americans are idiots, they always try to change things that are working so that they look unique. It's like those people you see on social media. So if you read something and it's written by somebody from India, then regarding things like, anyway, the point, just read the Kenyan stuff, but India will help you to a certain degree if you are one who reads things from the internet. Otherwise, remember to fact check when it comes to company law, because those things are not necessarily the same. Right, so I'm sending those notes after this, and then, yep, I'll see you in the next class. Have a lovely evening.